Okay, cool. So today's agenda will be we'll discuss more on RTD and the assignment what we have discussed. We'll discuss on that also. Before that assignment, I'll first start with the basic program. Just the objective is to whatever the stuffs we have discussed on RTD, like what is the definition of RTD, how to create RTD, how to apply transformations on RTD. So we'll spend some time discussing all these theoretical concepts through programs, and we'll discuss the first small program, small ETL, where we will be trying to count or we'll try to find out the total sum of transaction for each customer IDs, or basically for a given data set. Okay, so thereby we'll see that's kind of like the first program what we are trying now. And after that, so till now you saw like the programs what we are writing is a very elaborative way. So for small programming word count example you saw, word count example we'll revisit maybe after the 6th or 7th session. So before that, I'll be trying a couple of other very small and easy programs. So to make you familiar with programming, and we'll shorten the code. For now, you are seeing like every time I'm writing a very small use case, trying to find out the sum of transaction for customer ID or date. I'm writing 15 lines of code, 20 lines of code. So we'll shorten that code to only 2 to 3 lines. Okay, so Python style of programming. Right now, the objective is to show you like how this what you call means to just show you like what is higher order functions and all these things I just shown you. So, but later we'll just reduce the code because mostly we are preferring functional programming over object orientation. So functional programming, the very nature of functional programming is writing your code in a very small, concise manner, like not very elaborate way. You will see the same code what we are writing in Java, same logic whatever we are writing in Java. Let's say 100 lines of code or 20 lines of code. That 20 lines of Java code can be written with a single or 2-line max in Python. Okay, so we'll see those kind of programming because going forward we will be using that approach, and that's not basically a tricky way, rather that's a standard way of writing program. Okay, so before jumping into the assignment, let me quickly walk you through few more examples. Why is the starting with RTD example? Did you upload it, Suresh? Let's quickly import that notebook. Did you download that? One second, I think you are not able to unmute yourself, right? I am also not able to unmute you to yourself. So did you get a chance to download the notebooks, the RTD examples what I shown you earlier? I can't see your workspace directory. Okay, no worries. So people who have already imported, you don't have to import it again. So okay, I'll not be able to. Okay, one second. Just everybody don't keep any backlog, otherwise you will be spending time for the same thing repeatedly. Oh, what I'm doing here? Nobody is saying me anything. It's .py file. There is background noise from someone. Meanwhile, I think the download is complete. Oh, yeah, it's already completed. So let me quickly extract it. Okay, so everybody just don't keep in a backlog, otherwise we'll just other people will get hampered. Oh no, setup is completely wrong in this laptop. Why after clicking it's every time creating a new window? Okay, so basically what we'll be doing, we'll be basically starting with, so yesterday, last session you saw like what we did. We just created some basic programs to just understand like how the number of partitions are there. So with that, just an extension of the same program. So parallelize function you saw, like parallelize function basically what it does. It parallelize function is basically convert your standalone Python collection to a RTD. And we did the same thing here again. You see, I just created a little big RTD. Earlier it was only having elements 1 to 10. Now what I just created a RTD that is part contexted parallelize by passing a range of 1 to 1001. So that I'll be getting 1000 elements. And I just to show you like the second parameter takes the number of partitions. Even if you don't mention, by default it will read it as 8 partitions. But the objective is to show you like while reading the data, you pass the number of partitions. Okay. And real-time projects also, we always follow the same thing. We never rely on the default partitioning. We always read the databases. We always read the data by explicitly specifying the number of partitions. Okay. We never ever read the data with default partitioning. We'll come to that in more details. For now, just to show you syntactically, here there is no logic of 8 partitions. I'm just randomly reading it as 8 partitions. It's not like I know the dataset size is 800 MB, so I'm reading the data as 8 partitions. It's nothing like that. Just to randomly, I'm reading this data as 8 partitions. Okay, the objective is to show you this is syntax. We saw last session also, parallelize function takes a list, comma, number of partitions. That's what we did. And now we are basically calling take function. So what take function does, take function converts this RDD to a list only by taking the first 3 elements. Okay, RDD will take the first 3 elements from that RDD and it will return a list to us. Okay, we can't call collect function here. So why we shouldn't call collect function here? Any idea? Sandeep, what's wrong? Like if I'm just calling collect function, so what will happen?
Collect will create the collection of the elements.
Yeah, it will basically print the entire 1000 elements in the console and it will not be much readable, isn't it? So that's why we're calling take3 function. And I can show you. Suppose I'm calling collect function and I'm executing it. So you can see it's printing all these collections. I mean, the huge long list, I can't see that. I have to just keep on scrolling it, isn't it? So that's why I'm just calling take3. So to see the first 3 records. Now Pratyusha, like how many elements will be there in each partition? We have discussed like Spark
That
always
is
try to, sorry?
not fixed.
Yeah, that is not fixed. But what happens, no, means in RDD, it basically tries to distribute the records equally, or at least it will try to create balanced partition. It never happens like you read data from a system and you read the data as 100 partitions. Some partitions will be having 2x or 3x more number of records than others. That never ever happens. Spark always tries to balance the number of records across each partition. Okay, if you are just specifying a number of partitions. So here, if you are giving 8, so by default, it will be having how much? 800 and remaining how many? 200. Kind of 125 records will be on each
120.
partition, isn't it? But not 100 means some people may see like 125 records per partition. Some people may see some partitions are having 125, some partitions are having 122, some partition having 126, 127. But the idea is basically it will try to balance the number of records in each partition because it will be easy for Spark to do the further processing because it is having equal size of partitions to apply for the transformations. That's the whole idea here. Okay, Abhishek, if you're following, just feel free to interrupt me. You don't have to wait for me till completion. You
Yeah,
just feel free to interrupt me. Okay.
yeah, going good.
Yeah. So now basically the objective is basically uh, the number of partitions we have given 8. So I'm again calling that bigger RDD.getNum partitions to see total number of partitions, which is obvious because we explicitly specified 8. So 8 is coming. So there is again another function called count. Okay, here like you already created a list of 1,000 elements. So count is obvious to me. But just imagine when you are reading a data in a production or an actual project, when you are reading a data, you never know what the volume, what is the count of records because just think like if the data is a billion record and somebody has just shared that data with you, if you just open it in what Notepad++ or Sublime, any text editor, you will not be able to open it. That will hang. You might have seen like if you have a 1 GB of file, you want to open it in Notepad++ or Sublime, it will fail. It will hang. It will not be able to open it. And also like even if and sometimes like the data is really in TB scale data, you can't copy it to your local system and you can't open it in any notepad to see the content. Okay, so in projects the data is already there in HDFS or Amazon S3 bucket, so you have to programmatically read and just do some basic analysis how the data looks like and what are the different matrices of that data and all this. Okay, so these are a couple of points what we need to remember. Okay, so in projects like don't, if somebody is asking like in the interview like how do you do some basic analysis of the data, don't just say like yeah I download the data in local and open it in Notepad, see how many columns are there, how many rows are there. So he will immediately catch you. Yeah, you're saying something which is not making sense because the data is really huge, you can't even copy it to your local computer also, isn't it? So a couple of things we have to just remember. So I'm assuming like I'm reading a billion record data, so I'm just calling count functions to see the count of records. Here I have 1,000 elements, so it's printing 1,000. Okay, so now what I did, so the question, the assignment, what I have given to you, I've just given to you saying like find out like how many number of partitions will be there in your data, right? So if you remember, so bigger RDD.glom function. Okay, glom function is basically a function that is used to convert your RDD to a RDD of list. Okay, here my RDD is RDD of integers, isn't it? Here my RDD is RDD of integers, and RDD of integers is now I'm calling glom function. Glom function just collect the elements of each partition and create separate lists altogether. And now your RDD becomes a RDD of list. Okay, my objective is to basically find out the count of records in each partition. Okay, so for that I'm calling, so that means the objective is pretty straightforward. This RDD is a RDD of integers, 1,000 integers. The moment I call glom function, it becomes a RDD of 8 lists. Okay, everybody just follow up carefully, just observe carefully. Okay, just don't sleep. Okay, morning I know, just take a coffee and just be active. So I'm calling bigger RDD.glom function. Glom function is basically converting your RDD of list, RDD of integers to RDD of list of integers. How many lists? 8, because we know bigger RDD is a RDD of 8 partitions. So glom function created another RDD, and that RDD is of having a list of integers. Okay, 8 list of integers, and I want to get the size of each of these lists. Okay, I just want to find out like how many elements. Okay, how many elements are there in each of these lists. Moment I'm calling dot map function, I'm calling map function, and inside that I'm passing a function called list len. Okay, any user defined function I've called. So the objective of this function is to basically take each list and find out the count of elements. Okay, this is the same analogy what we have discussed. So now we are basically slowly entering into the transformation part also. Glom function is a transformation which transformed your list of. If I just actually my hash key will not work. Can you just put a hash? Can you just put a hash symbol here? So yeah, so basically bigger at this. So how your transformation it is happening? So I have list of integers are there, and that is getting transformed into, and with the moment I'm calling glom function is converting, sorry, not list, so RDD of integers. When I'm calling glom function is converting. Once again, I'm the person who's telling me. RDD of integers. The moment you call glom function just converted your RDD of integers to RDD of list of integer. Okay, that's the transformation. Happened on this, isn't it? So RDD of integer just converted to RDD of list of integer, and this RDD of list of integer again I'm calling map function. Okay, map, reduce, these are all just all these keywords came from the mathematics only. If you know, 1 second. One second, sorry. Okay, so okay, that's there. So what we are saying, like so what we are saying, like yeah, so the moment you call glom function just transformed your RDD of integer to RDD of list of integer, and then again you are calling map function. Map function is the keyword that what we have learned in the school mathematics. Like if you remember in the sixth standard, we have discussed like linear algebra, quadratic equation, cubic equation, linear equation. So the same thing, like if you remember, like y is equal to f of x is equal to x square plus 2x plus 5. Means it has no relation with this program. I'm just giving a hypothetical example. So what we have seen there, so you are basically creating a you're basically defining a function that is f of x, and it has been it's an expression that has whole bunch of x parameters, and you pass any value of x, you will get a different y. Okay, x square plus 2x plus 5, you put x equal to 1, you will get a y value. You put x equal to 2, you will get a different y value. You put x equal to 3, you will get a different y value. So as you keep on passing different values of x, you will get different values of y. So that's basically that we say like in words what we say, f of x is a function that maps each value of x to y. Here also similar thing, like mapped is the entire research that white paper is published by one mathematician and another computer scientist. So that's why like the terminologies are pretty much similar to a linear algebra. You take one what you call you define a function f of x, and you are saying this function is mapping x to y. You put one value of x, like mapping the plain English word also you can say. Sometimes you say, yeah, map this value to that, or map this resource to that project. It's a common word, right? Same thing here also holds true. You're saying map means you are applying transformations record by record. Okay, you are applying some transformations record by record. You apply transformations record by record. You have 100 records there, in 1000 records in this particular RDD. So glom function just transform that to RDD of 8 list by collating or by coalescing all these elements of each of these partition together. Then you are calling map function. Map function will be called on top of RDD of 8 list. Okay, so that means it's again a one-to-one transformation. Map function will take this list len function. It will apply to each and every list of integers of this RDD and some transformations you are applying. Okay, so that's up to the developer what transformations he or she want to apply. Here my objective is take each list and convert it to an integer. That integer is nothing but the size of that particular list. Okay, so I define a function called list len, and this list len is taking L as a parameter. Okay, and it's basically returning length of L. The length is a function. You can pass a list inside. It will give you the size of the list. Okay, now the question comes in like how map basically identifies the elements and how the elements pass to list len. Let's try to understand that. So all these functions in RDD, we have seen like in the RDD class of PySpark, you see there are hundreds of functions available. Okay, so most of the functions what you find there is basically iterative in nature. Okay, most of the functions inside RDD is basically iterative in nature. Okay, so you will see, so we are starting with map function. You will see filter, group by key, reduce by key, and all these functions are iterative in nature. So and also like this is called also higher order function. Okay, map, filter, group by key, all these transformations on RDD, you will see these are called higher order functions. What is the objective of higher order function? Which we just understand. Higher order function is nothing but a function take another function as a parameter. And some people who are not from programming background, you might have seen in your college time C, C++ or Java. So there is no such concept like passing a function as a parameter to function. This concept is only available in Scala, Python, like functional programming languages. Okay, you can pass a function as a parameter. And what is the essence of that? If you remember, like function is what? Function is nothing but a reusable piece of code. You have certain logic and you want to rewrite again and again. Instead, you can basically define a function and you can make call to that function again and again. Okay, function is nothing but a reusable piece of code. But there are certain scenarios where you will require you have to write certain reusable piece of code, but while writing the function, you are not 100% sure like what's the logic you will be implementing. Okay, so basically when you are writing that function, you know partially what you want to implement, but another part is basically is very dynamic. For example, this scenario what we are discussing, map function. Map function, what it does, its objective is basically to iterate each and every element of a given RDD, apply certain functions to each of these elements, and then return a new RDD. This is basically the function map function basically does. You can see like on top of RDD, I'm calling map function. So map function will keep on iterating through each and every element of that particular RDD. It will apply certain functions, apply certain function on each and every record, and it will return a new RDD. That's basically the idea. That's basically the logic what is being implemented in the backend code of map. Okay. So now here there are two parts: certain static logic and certain dynamic logic. Static logic is means you have to iterate through each and every record, apply certain transformation, and return a new RDD. This part is fixed. But what transformation you will be applying, that is completely dynamic, isn't it? That's never fixed. You are reading a file that is comma delimited, so maybe you are applying a transformations to split it through comma. Okay, so your friend is basically reading a file that is tilde or pipe delimited. So he will be basically writing the functions to split it through tilde or pipe. Okay, so here basically I have a RDD of list of integer. I want to find out the count of elements in each list. That is a separate transformation, isn't it? So there are two logic, like static logic and dynamic logic. So there basically this higher order function comes into picture. I want to define a function. That function is having certain static logic and certain dynamic logic. Static logic is already taken care. Dynamic logic is something I have to return. I have to write the function and pass it inside. That's whole idea. That's the whole idea behind this higher order function. Okay, so every time you're applying some reading some data and you want to get some analysis on that, or you want to write any ETL pipeline, so you have to basically think of, like, you have to read the data and keep on applying different transformations on the data. Okay, we'll come to that more examples, but the map function what we are trying now, this map function is that only. You read the data, you create map function. What it does, it keep on iterating through each and every record, apply certain transformation. That transformation is nothing but a function what we are passing as a parameter to map function. Okay, so we are passing a parameter to the map function, and that parameter is nothing but a function here. Okay, so that is higher order function. Not just in Python, in Scala also you'll be seeing the same thing. Okay, we are writing map function and you're passing another function as a parameter. Okay, so here, and how the function will be, can you pass any random function to map? The question comes in, like, since map function, what we are saying, like, it's a higher order function and it should take another function as a parameter, because this piece is nothing but the transformation logic we're passing, isn't it? The transformation logic I'm passing into map function. And now my question is basically, can you pass any random function into map function? Because function, it can take one parameter, it can take two parameter, it can take 10 parameter, it can take no parameter, it can return some value, it may not return any value. You have a whole bunch of options, but like, what kind of functions you'll be passing? So just remember, you have to pass any function that take exactly one parameter. Okay, map function has been defined in such a way that the function what you are passing. So the idea we know, like, map function is iterating through each and every record. What is the type of record it is iterating? The type of record is basically list of integers, isn't it? Because we have called glom function on a RDD and we got a RDD of list of integers. When I'm calling map function is iterating through each and every record of that RDD, and each and every record is a list here. Okay, so I have to define a function that should and must take a list as a parameter. If you consider L as a string and you try to apply some function, say L.2 uppercase or L.2 lowercase, it will fail, because it will say, no, L is not a string, it's actually a list. They're calling a function which is not available in list. So that part we have to remember. When we are mapping, when we are applying some transformations on a RDD, so you just need to remember what element is you are iterating. You are iterating string, you are iterating integer, you are iterating list. What elements you are iterating? Here you are iterating list of integers. So that's why I have defined a function list len that takes a list parameter and list, and you can call len function and pass list, and you'll get the size of elements. That's what we are doing. So that means this map function will convert your RDD of list of integer to RDD of integers only, right? It will basically transform it into list of integer only, because the moment you call len function just converted your list to a single integer. And what is that integer? That integer is nothing but the size of each of these lists, isn't it? Bigger RDD is RDD of integer. You convert it into RDD of list of integer through glom function. Glom function just collates all these elements of each of this partition and create a separate list, right? So you created a RDD of list of integers. Then you again call map function. Map function is used to apply one-to-one transformation. You have n number of records in the RDD. You'll always result into n number of records in the RDD. Here I had 8 lists, RDD of 8 lists. You again get a RDD of 8 integers. Okay, the data type changed, but the count of records same, because map function is basically used to apply one-to-one transformation. Same analogy, f of x we discussed. You pass x equal to 1, you will get different value of y. You pass x equal to 2, you will get a different value of y. You have 100 values, you will 100 inputs, you will get 100 outputs. Okay, same thing holds true here also. You have 100 records, you have 8 records in the previous RDD, so you will get another 8 records from this. Okay, so then you are calling collect function. Collect function will simply convert this RDD of integer to a list of integer. Okay, it will convert that to a list of integer. Okay, let me execute this and see. Cool. We're getting all this, and luckily I'm getting all these elements are equally distributed. I'm getting each and every partition is having 125 records. I have total 1000 elements. Those 1000 divided by 8, that is 125. So I'm getting 125 number of records per partition. Okay, anybody having any queries?
So Abhishek, if we don't put that collect, what will be the output? Can you please show that?
If I'm not using,
That collect function at the end, collect function.
so collect, if I'm not using collect function, then nothing will happen.
Okay, then it will only return RDT of integers.
Exactly,
Okay.
it's just a RDD.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
By the way, my name is not Abhishek, I'm Siddharth.
Siddharth,
Okay.
Siddharth,
Sorry for
Siddharth,
that.
Yeah, no
Siddharth,
worries. Yeah, Abhishek, please go ahead.
Siddharth, if we take here till map of function, if we
Mhm.
take this output into one particular like variable or RDD, you can say, and then we try to print, that will work if we don't use
You are
that.
saying you want to create a variable like this,
Yeah,
and
collector you can remove. Collect you remove.
this you are saying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, should be fine.
If you don't use that, if you don't use collector and just to display the RDD,
Then it will not print the output. That's the next discussion we'll be having in
okay,
few minutes.
okay.
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 Others, sorry, Siddharth, if I want to apply map without GLOM, right? I can able to do it, right? If I want to do, if I want to call different function.
Definitely, it's not like on top of RDD, because GLOM function also return the RDD, isn't it?
Correct.
But here it will fail because integer doesn't have any length function and all.
Basically, I wanted to ask, like, I want to perform different function.
Yeah, all these functions, we see like there are hundreds of functions are there. You'll get to know, like for now, like you will feel like, yeah, I can't remember this 100 functions, which is true. Human brain is not meant for that, remembering many things. But yeah, we can basically find out the pattern how to remember. So suppose I will be discussing here almost 10-15 functions. If you just go through this 10-15 functions, so automatically we'll remember another 30-40 functions. I'll come to that. So here I'm using map function. Map function has another two variants: map partitions with index. Okay, you'll get to know. Suppose applying aggregation, I have reduced by key function. So I'll be discussing 3-4 more functions: aggregate by key, combine by key, fold by key. Okay, the objective is same. Okay, aggregation is will be done, but in different ways. So I'll basically I'll discuss almost in RDD almost 15 functions will be seen, and all these functions have another 3-4 variants. Okay, so in a way you didn't learn 15 functions, rather you learned 45 to 50 functions. That's the whole idea. Okay, so I know that okay, it's everybody will be having a similar problem. How I'll be remembering the functions. Anyway, you have the documentation side. I'll be using the functions. So how I'll be using, is it like I'm just creating something? No, it's basically the day-to-day basis, whatever the analysis we do. So how we do the analysis, what kind of functions we use. So those functions I'm using it. Okay, and all these analysis also I'll be doing. No? These are general data transformation analysis. People from Informatica, they can relate it. Yeah, this kind of transformations we apply. People from SQL, they can also relate it. Means the logic is same, and I'll be using the corresponding function in Spark. Okay, the logic is same, but I'll be using the corresponding function in Spark. Okay, so obviously in another 3-4 sessions, you'll be having a sense like, yeah, I've learned almost 10 functions now. So these are the functions if a question has been asked to me. So in interviews, like every other interview is use case driven nowadays, you know, like not nowadays, like last 2 to 3 years, I'm observing here in Bangalore and all. So every other interview you appear for, it is having hands-on thing. They will be prepared with some data sets. They will tell you, yeah, these are the 3 data sets. Just take it. This is a product data. This is the sales data. This is the customers data. Can you tell me which are the top 10 performing products? Which are the top 10 performing revenue generating customers? Can you give me the second highest salary, second highest revenue generating product? So these kind of questions will be asked. So now your objective, your thing is basically you should relate how I'll be breaking this entire problem statement step by step by applying transformations one after another to basically move from the source data till the final data I arrive. Okay, if you think that way, you will get to know like all these functions what we have learned here. You can utilize the same functions to achieve that answer. You don't have to again. You will never get into a situation some problem has been given to you and you would never know what's the function for this. Okay, that will never happen. Okay, because a lot of examples are there. A lot of use cases also will be discussing. Okay, so don't worry. Okay, we're going step by step. So now basically what we had discussed, we just saw like this is the assignment what I have given to you to find out the count of records in each partition. So this is the answer. Okay. So now next thing is basically on top of the same bigger RDD. Okay, so bigger RDD is basically what I have created in the earlier line, right? This bigger RDD what I created here. This bigger RDD is nothing but it's a RDD of integers, RDD of 1000 integers, right? So the same bigger RDD what I created earlier. On top of the same RDD, which is of 8 partitions. So on top of that, I'm calling repartition. On top of that, I'm calling repartition 10. As the function name suggests, it's completely English. It's not like computer science, very high fundu keywords they have used. No, not like that. It's from plain English. It's saying bigger RDD dot repartition 10. Okay, so this will also return another RDD, and that RDD is having now 10 partitions instead of 8 partitions. Okay, this RDD is of 10 partitions. You basically change the number of partitions to 10. Earlier you had 8 partitions, roughly 125 elements in each partition. Now you changed it to 10 partitions. Now if you're really observing, a lot of questions will come to your mind. I'm just expecting good questions here also. So my RDD was earlier 8 partitions in the RAM, in the memory only. There is no hard disk, nothing. I just created a standalone list. I converted that to RDD. It was 8 partitions. In the RAM, I have 8 lists. Okay, I have 8 lists. Each list is each list or each partition is of 125 elements. Now there are functions to change the number of partitions also. A lot of questions will come like why I require to change the partition. Okay, and what will happen, like in the memory it will change or it will write the data to disk and then do all this. All these questions should come to your mind. We'll come to that. But here what I'm saying like the moment you call repartition 10, so your data is now changed to 10 partitions. In the RAM of all this 10 node cluster, earlier you had 8 partitions. That means out of 10 worker nodes, 8 worker nodes are having 1 partition in their RAM each. Now the moment you converted that 8 partitions to 10 partitions, now each and every computer is having 1 partition in the RAM. I'm slowly entering into the technicalities. So earlier I had 10 computer cluster and I had 8 partitions. That means 8 partitions were having some data in the RAM. 2 partitions were having no data. They were idle kind of. Now I wanted to maximum utilize my cluster. So what I did, I just changed the number of partitions to 10. So now each computer is having 1 partition in the RAM. So further computation can be done by all these 10 computers, not just 8 computers. Okay, and after that what I'm doing, I'm calling save as text file. Save as text file is a function to save this RDD as a text file. Save this RDD of 1000 elements, and this 1000 elements are of 10 partitions, and I'm calling save as text file. So it will save that entire RDD as a text file called 10. And in the subsequent line, I'm reading the same directory or context.txt file, what you have already seen in the word count example. I'm trying to slowly dissect this program line by line. Here you have used the syntax or context.txt file to read a data and create a RDD out of it. So now I'm doing the same thing again. So what I'm doing, I am reading a data from this particular directory called 10, file store /table /bigger RDD /10. I'm reading this file and I'm calling get num partition. Okay, so how many number of partitions will be there? Any guess?
10.
Okay, so Abhishek is saying 10. So let's see. But we discussed like every time you convert a standalone Python collection to a RDD, the number of partitions is 8. But why you think it will become 10? So while reading the data, did you mention like 10 here? No, right? Because your text file function is also having this second parameter called num partition, but we didn't pass. Still, how confidently you're...
We have overridden repartitioning. We have done for the save file, and that save file we are taking the get number of partitions. So that will.
Does that mean like you are saying if you read a file having 10,000 partitions? First of all, let's see. Okay, let's not go into very superficial discussion. Let's first see it line by line what is happening. So what I'm doing here, can you put a hash symbol here, please? So this. Okay. So now just forget about things. So here's the same bigger RDD, which is a RDD of 8 partition. I converted to RDD of 10 partition, and I'm saving it as a text file here in this. Okay, just remember every time you write the data, you specify the directory, not file. Why? Sure. When I'm writing a RDD, I'm giving a path of a directory, not a file name. I'm not saying 10.txt, 10.csv, not like that. Why is it like that? Why do you think like, sorry?
No idea, Siddharth.
Okay, so the idea, basically the point here is basically, so we'll get to know because every time you write a distributed collection, okay, so distributed is a 10 partition. So 10 partitions will be written as 10 different files here. That's why every time you write, you have to give the directory location. Even if you give 10.txt, it will create a directory 10.txt, and inside that 10 files will be there. Okay, let's see that. So I just executed, so no output. Only thing is basically it succeeded. So I have to go to the data section, click add data, click DBFS, database file system, file store, tables, bigger RDD. Okay, and you can see there is a directory called 10. I'm clicking that. You can see here there are a whole bunch of files get created. Part 0, part 1, part 2, part 3 up to part 9. 10 partitions created. Okay, 10 partitions created along with a flag file _success. It's a empty file, but the file name suggests the file has been written successfully. So what happens like in real-time project when you are writing a 10 TB file or 100 TB file and you execute it and you go to the location and see, you'll see there will be underscore temporary file. That means the process is going on, the write is going on. Once the write completed, it will say underscore success. That underscore temporary will be changed to underscore success. Similarly, if something failed, that underscore temporary will be changed to underscore failure. Okay, so you have to make sure like when you are reading the directory should be having an underscore success file. Or programmatically, when you write a RDD to a distributed file system, you will see the distributed file system. You will see the number of partitions is. You will see the number of partition is. So whatever the number of partitions there, we have mentioned 10 partitions, so it's creating 10 files. So this Databricks doesn't give the option to download this, but later when we will be using later when we will be using S3 bucket and all, there you will see all these output in the console and you can download the output also. Here you can only programmatically read them. Okay, in the next session, next example, you will see how to read it. So what we did, we just write the RDD of 10 partitions into this location. So it created 10 part files. Okay, all partitions are written as different part files. Part 401, part 402, like that. Okay, and each partition will be having roughly 100 elements, because your entire RDD is a RDD of 1000 elements, and you just repartition it to 10. So roughly each partition will be having 100 elements. So each part file here contains 100 elements. Okay, and in the next statement, what I did, I read that data.
Siddharth, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, RDD is immutable, right?
Correct.
So the bigger RDD we created with 8 partitions, whenever we apply anything, right, it will be creating a new RDD.
Exactly.
Bigger RDD, the repartition of 10 will create a new RDD.
Exactly. This is a RDD. The moment you called repartition 10, it created a new RDD, and the previous RDD just flushed out from the RAM. Every transformation in the previous example also same thing. This is a RDD. The moment you called long function, it created another RDD. This RDD is now garbage collected. Then you are again calling map function. It created another RDD, and the previous RDD got garbage collected. Then you are calling collect function. Every other operations, every other transformation you are applying an RDD, it's all basically, and you will end up creating a new RDD altogether. Okay, that's the thing.
Now the bigger underscore RDD will be having 8 partitions only, right?
Exactly.
If you do bigger underscore RDD dot get num partitions, right? So it will give 8, correct?
8, exactly.
Okay.
Still, if you just now try,
Siddharth,
because
sorry. If we don't use that repartition 10, so how many files will be created in that scenario from bigger RDD?
same thing, 8 partitions, 8 part files.
Okay, so if I want to get only one file from that RDD, what is that? How can
One part file will be created.
Also, okay. So we have to give means that partition as one.
Exactly. So every time, whatever the number of partitions, you'll be expecting exact same number of part files inside the directory.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So now we saw like how you change the number of partitions, and now here basically I'm trying to read the same file. I don't want to write it back because the data is already written there. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to read the file, that is 10. 10 is the directory I want to read, and you see I'm executing it. So it's printing 10. So that means we have discussed the default partitioning concept. Just keep on adding these points to your previous understanding. Previously, we just had a perspective that every time you convert a standalone collection to a RDD, the number of partitions is 8. Okay. So now, when you read a distributed file and create a RDD out of it, the number of partitions will be exactly same as the number of part files. Okay, here you saw like it is having a 10 part file, so it is reading it as 10 partitions. Okay, so you saw 2 default behavior. Okay, default partitioning, we just learned 2 such concepts. Another 2 concepts are there, so we will come to that one by one. For now, just keep on adding these points to your to your understanding. Now what I did, I again want to see the number of records in each partition. How to do that? I just copy pasted the same code, bigger RDD.repartition 10. Okay, it's the same RDD of integers. Okay, this entire expression is returning RDD of integers, and you have 10 partitions. Then you are calling glom function. So glom function is basically converting your RDD of integer to RDD of list of integers. How many lists? 10 lists. Then you are basically calling the same function. I don't want to confuse you now. I'll be using the same function here. We'll come to this lambda in few minutes. For now, I'm using this same function what I've defined earlier. I'm calling map function. I'm passing list length, so it will basically calculate the length of each of this partition, and then I'm calling collect function. Okay, so what you can see, strange, right? So the moment you called repartition 10, strangely some partitions are having 100, some are having 80, some are having 115. Okay, this time we are not lucky. We are not getting 100 records in each partition. Where some partitions are 100, some are 80, some are 90, 95, 125. Like that, we are getting all these kind of records. But it will be not very different. Means maximum 10-20% difference is there, but not a very drastic. Like it's not like few partitions are completely empty. Okay, we saw the data what we are the bigger RDD is RDD of now the RDD is basically RDD of 10 partitions. We are getting the number of records like this. Some people may get 100 records each partition. Some people may get 100, 101, 102. But here, like there is a little exception. Like I'm missing 2 partitions having 80 records, 20% less. But yeah, that's never guaranteed. But it will try to balance the number of records. It will not guarantee you the exact number of records in each partition, but it will try to balance it. Okay, that's what I was just mentioning previously. Okay, similarly, here what I did in the next statement, I changed the number of partitions to a lesser number of partitions, that is 5. Okay, same bigger RDD dot get num partitions. If you just try now, it is also same RDD of 8 partitions. Get num partitions is the same 8 number of partitions. Now I'm reducing the number of partitions to 5. Repartition function is not just used to increase, you can also decrease the number of partitions using repartition. Okay, so now we are basically reducing the number of partitions to 5, and I'm saving it as a text file, save as text file, and I'm giving a directory called 4. Okay, that means I am giving 4, I should give 5, right? Means you can give any name for like better understanding. I'm giving relevant name. So basically it will write the data into that particular directory, and in the next line you are reading the data also from the same directory. So we should expect 5 partitions. Okay, we write the data as 5 part files and we are reading the directory, so it should also give me 5 partitions, which it is doing. Okay, so now again same thing. I'm just trying to see the number of records in each. I'm just trying to see the number of records in each partition. So for that, I'm again calling the same function just to see like how the data is distributed across all these partitions. So I tried the same thing again. Now you can see I have 8 partitions. Roughly 200 records should be coming in each partition, which this is doing only. Some are 205, some are 200. Some are 205, some are 195, 190, like that. Okay, these are the 5 partitions. Now you have another function called coalesce. Okay, coalesce function is used to read the number of to basically decrease the number of partitions. Okay, repartition function is used to both increase and decrease the number of partitions, whereas coalesce function is used to only decrease the number of partitions. Why there is a bifurcation? Why Spark community they just created 2 different functions, not just one repartition, which is fine, it is doing whatever we require. But why they have created another function called coalesce? So coalesce, just remember it's, so we have 2 functions, one is called repartition, another is called coalesce. Both the functions are used to change the number of partitions, whereas repartition is used to both increase and decrease, and coalesce is used to only decrease. Okay, and the repartition function you observe doesn't matter you try to increase or decrease the number of partitions. So equal shuffling of the data happens. Okay, means full shuffling of the data happens. Okay, so Spark will try its level best to shuffle the records of different partitions and create new partitions or delete existing partitions. You mentioned 8 to 10. So records from all these 8 partitions will be extracted to create 2 more partitions. You converted 8 to 5. So basically records from all these 8 partitions will be clubbed together as 5 partitions. Okay, the entire movement of the data happens. Okay, means each and every record from each and every partitions will be shuffled. Shuffled means moving. Shuffle is an English word, SHUFFLE. Shuffle means the data will be moved, or basically data will be shuffled across multiple nodes or multiple nodes of the cluster. Okay, that's basically what I mean as shuffling of the data. Repartition function always triggers full shuffling of the data, whereas coalesce function doesn't do that way. Coalesce function, first of all, it is used to only decrease the number of partitions, not to increase. Rather, it's only used to decrease the number of partitions. And how it happens? It happens in this way. It doesn't go for full shuffling. If you just mention 8 to 6 partition, so 4 partitions will remain as it is, and another 4 partition will be clubbed together as 2 partitions. Coalesce function doesn't go for full shuffling of the data. All records from all partitions will not be moving across the different machines to basically decrease the number of partitions. Rather, partitions from so basically what I'm saying, like coalesce function will not go for full shuffling. It will simply concatenate, or it will merge multiple partitions together as a single partition. Here I'm saying just change the number of partition from 8 to 6. So maybe first and second partition will be merged as one, third and fourth partition will be merged as one, and remaining 4 partition will remain as it is. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. And what if you try to increase the number of partition using coalesce? It will not give you any error, neither it will do anything in the backend. Okay, it will not be able to increase the number of partitions. It will simply copy the same 8 partitions into this location if you try to increase the number of partitions using coalesce. Okay, that's basically what happens here. Okay, so that is one thing. And again, we'll be curious to see like how the records have been distributed. We are saying full shuffling didn't happen. So let's verify it programmatically. Cool, you can see the same thing. You can see bigger RDD is a RDD of 8 partition. So we saw each and every partition was of having 125 elements. So you can see 4 partitions are having 125 elements and 2 partitions are having 250 elements. It's not in coincidence. It's actually the backend things happen in this way. The moment it tried to decrease the number of partitions from 8 to 6, that means 4 partition has to be clubbed together as 2 partitions. So that's what happened here. Okay, 125 plus 125, 250, and here also it is 250.
So, Siddharth, how that will be distributed when we reduce from 8 to 5?
That's what means you had 8 partitions or 8 collections in the 8 list in the RAM. Okay, 8 lists were there in the RAM of 8 computers. The moment you called coalesce 6, so first 2 computers or any random 2 computers, 2 partitions just clubbed together as a single partition. Now suppose computer 1 was having 125 elements, 1 partition, and computer 2 is having 125 elements, second partition. Now either computer 1 or 2 will be having 1 partition having 250 elements. Simply just horizontally concatenating.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, that's basically the way it happens in the backend. Okay, it basically work in that way. And you see, yeah, whatever we are discussing, I'm just trying to see programmatically justifying it. So we are saying repartition does full shuffling, but we have seen earlier, like always the number of records fluctuate. Okay, not just few partitions, rather every partition's records get fluctuates. Initially 125, you increased it to 10, you saw some are having 80, some are having 90, some are having 100, 125, like that each and every partition getting shuffled. You reduced it to 5, same thing. Each and every 5 partitions are having different number of records. Means repartition always triggers full shuffling of the data in the cluster, whereas coalesce function is used to only decrease the number of partitions. It's not story. In real-time projects, it's a lot of significance. I'm saying like partitioning. Throughout this entire 30 sessions, we'll be discussing partitioning in some or other manner. But yeah, that's what, like, if you don't understand the partitioning, even though you have a huge cluster having terabytes of TBs of RAM, but you are processing only few GBs of data, you will not be able to process it. So we have to understand partitioning thoroughly. Okay, so I'm trying to just get into that slowly. This is not just end with repartition. There are a lot of other things that are also there. Will come to that. But for now, you just see the fundamental is behind these two functions are basically trigger full shuffling or trigger partial shuffling. Okay, so now enough theory. I just tried to, yeah, Sandeep, you're saying something?
Coalesce will decrease the partitions, right? So while
It
merge the existing partition to create the single partition.
partition, exactly.
How it will be identifying, like whether it'll go for only partition with lesser space or lesser elements, or it's completely random.
It's completely random. It's all hash.
Okay.
Hashing, through hashing only it identifies which partitions to be clubbed together.
Okay.
Because we don't have to again worry about like which partitions got clubbed together, because anyway we don't have access to the elements at the index level. Just like in normal Python, you can access the elements of a list through the index. Here we don't have that concept. We can't access the elements of a list using index. You should be we will not be able to access the elements through index. So that's why we don't need to know like which partition moved or which partition didn't move, or which partition just clubbed together and which partitions remain as it is. Because anyway, every time we access the data, it's always through the hash partitioning. Okay, there is no indexing concept here. Okay, that is there. So with that, let's start with our first kind of ETL or data transformation program. Till now, we have seen only, we are trying to understand the partitioning, or we are just trying to justify what we have learned theoretical definition of the RTD, this partitioning concepts and all. We just programmatically saw like how the data, how the partitions are there, so how all these things happen, right? So now at least like everybody is having some. So Pratyusha, are you comfortable, or you are still having some queries and all?
Yes, I got it now. That. It's clear.
Cool then. Okay, just feel free to interrupt me every time you get any confusion. Just
Yeah.
feel free to interrupt. So now we'll try some basic what you call aggregation problems. Okay, so this is the program what we are trying to do. Say I have just created a standalone list called transaction list, txn underscore list, and it is having 4 elements, 4 strings. So transaction ID tilde transaction amount, transaction ID tilde transaction amount, like that. We have 4 such records are there. 4 such records. Each record is a transaction ID tilde transaction amount. Just remember this, just observe this carefully, because with that we'll be giving assignment. We'll start giving assignments to you. Okay. So what I'm trying to do in this particular program, I'm just trying to find out the total sum of transaction in this data set. Somebody has just given me a transaction data set. I'm working for a company startup. They just tell me like, can you just tell me like what is the total amount of transaction happened last year? They gave me one file, last year's file. They just mentioned, yeah, this file is sitting there in this location. Read this and quickly tell me what is the total transaction happened. Okay. So now let's write this program one by one. I'm just deleting this code. So we'll be writing this code to find out the total sum of transactions. Now I just converted this list into a RDD by calling rcontext.parallelize, and I pass this transaction list, right? So what I'm doing, I'm saying transaction underscore list dot collect. I know my elements are only few elements, so I'm just calling collect function to see how the records look like. Okay, so that is there. And what we are doing here, sorry, what happened? What list came?
It should be underscore RDD.
Oh, sorry, transaction RDD, sorry. Transaction RDD dot collect. So it will basically collect all these records. So now basically first job is I was just want to find out these numbers like 1000, 2000, 1000, 2000 like that, and I have to find the sum. So for that, first I need to convert each of these records into what, like list of subfields, list of transaction ID and So first, if I just write the pseudocode here, can I just type a hash symbol here? Yeah. So first I'm reading a RDD of transactions. Then I'll be converting into RDD of list of attributes. List of attributes here is nothing but transaction ID and transaction amount. Then take out transaction amount part. Transaction amount part. And take out the transaction amount part. And then, okay, and just take out the transaction amount part. And then find out the sum of transaction. Sum of amount, like that. Okay, so we have to just follow this this sequence of transformations to reach at the final output. Okay, so transaction RDD of transactions is there. So let's convert that to RDD of list of attributes. So that means each record will be converted to list of attributes like transaction 01, 1000, transaction 02, 2000, like that, right? So that means it's a clear example of map transformations like record-wise record transformation. So what I'm doing, say attributes RDD is equal to transaction RDD dot map, and I'll be passing a function say str split, right? That is what we have done earlier. I'm defining a function say str split. Just when you were practicing the program, no, practice in this way. Don't just copy paste the entire program and execute in one shot. It's difficult to understand. So let's write line by line and practice it. Even though like what you can do, no? So in your notebook, you have entire code. You just create a new cell below and start typing code one by one. Okay, so that will be basically you'll be remembering the thing for a longer time. Okay, here I'm saying say I'm passing a variable say called line. Okay, and then I'm saying line return line dot split, and how I'll be splitting. Here my delimiter is tilde, right? So now I'll be curious to see how my data looks like. So instead of collecting the entire previous RDD, I'll be collecting a new RDD. Now you can see each and every element got broken into attributes like word by word, right? Word by word, like that. And like that. So we have done that. I have done like in this way. So it's broken into different words. And post that like what we have to do. So we just received this part, okay, RDD of list of attributes, and then take out amount part. Okay, I will be again like now you can see each and every record is basically a list of subfields, and I want to I just want to take what you call, I just want to take only the amount part from that. It's again a map transformation. Each list will be mapped to only amount, isn't it? So let's do that. So I'm saying amount RDD is equal to attribute RDD dot map, and then I'm passing a function say get amount, right? So def keyword get amount, and I'm passing a list here. Say I'm saying return L of 1, right? So the first index, 0th index transaction ID, first index is an amount, right? So then what I'm saying amount RDD. Amount RDD dot collect. So you can see I get all these amounts, but only thing is basically these amounts are basically string now. But I want to find out the sum. So what I can do, I can convert this to float or integer. Since it's amount, so I'm just using float. I'm just converting into float and just re-executing it. Now you can see each and every amount just got converted to numeric. Okay. Now what I'll be doing, I'll be basically applying some aggregation. So for that, I have a function called reduce. Okay. It's not like I forgot the syntax, but just to show you the what is called the function parameter. Till now you have seen one parameter function. Just like list is a function, the map function you saw. Let's take one parameter and return one value. So now I just want to I'm just going to RTD class and control F. There is a reduce function is there. Okay. So let's go to reduce. So you can see reduce is a function what you can see in the screen here. Reduces the elements of this RTD using a specified commutative and associative binary function. Don't go much deeper. Like anyway, I'll discuss like what is commutative and associative. Currently reduces partitions locally. So here you see like they have given an example. So they have given you an example how to do that. So here you can see reduce add function. Okay, add is a function available there inside this operator package. Okay, you can directly call add function inside. Okay, from operator import add is a function to some numbers. Okay, so I can also use their function as they have used. Why it's not letting me to copy? I just use this function. So I just import this. It's not like you can use inbuilt function. You can use your own function also. So Python is strictly formatted language. You have to use the proper indentation. You can see after line, I'm putting a space. I'm putting a tab. Okay, let's follow this. So yeah. So then I'm just using the same function. So for every other function, they have given an example. Reduce function. I'm passing this add function here. Okay, this add function will keep on adding the elements, 2 elements at a time, because they have mentioned it's a binary function, right? They mentioned like using the elements of the RTD using the specified commutative and associative binary operator. Okay, so if you see, I'm just calling amount RTD. So now I'm just calling reduce, because reduce function, it doesn't return a RTD. Okay, reduce function doesn't return RTD. Reduce function returns a value actually. So here you can see I'm calling spark context.parallelize. It created a RTD out of it. Then I'm calling reduce. So it's printing the value actually. Your RTD is RTD of float. It will return a float. Your RTD is RTD of integer. It will return integer. Your RTD is RTD of string. It will return a string. That's how the reduce function has been written. Okay, amount RTD dot reduced. Amount RTD dot reduce and amount RTD dot reduce, and you can basically pass the add function here. And now let's see the output. So you can see 6,000. So basically in the backend, what happens? No, don't feel like what happened in the add function. You never know, and not like that. I can define a function, say add 2 or something like that, and how the parameter it will be. It will be taking 2 parameter n1, n2. I'll come to that why it is like that. Then return n1 plus n2. Okay, and instead of using this instead of using this predefined function, I can use my own function also to get the amount, total final sum. So how it is happening? So map function, as the name suggests, it takes one record at a time and transform it. Reduce function takes 2 elements at a time, because you saw the previously the elements are 1000, 2000, 1000, 2000. So reduce function will pass. Here we have passed add 2 function. It's basically adding 2 elements. So what will happen? It will take first 1000 and 2000, pass this function to add 2, then it will return 3000. Then it will pass 3000 comma 1000. Then this add 2 function will return 4000. Then this reduce function will again call this 4000 comma 2000. It will return 6000. Like that, the aggregation will keep on happening. Okay, like this, the amount, this aggregation will keep happening here. That is what I mean as aggregations here in. That is how it happens. Aggregation happens using reduce function. Reduce function take two elements at a time and find out the aggregation. Map function take one element at a time and apply the transformation, like that. Okay, so here you are getting 6,000 as the final output. Okay, this is basically a very simple use case we tried. So now we are good to basically start with some assignments. The exact same analysis you have to do. There is a file called finance.csv. Okay, you can see. So never open it in any Excel sheet and it will screw up the data. And it will just add junk characters there. So here you can see this data is basically finances data. It's a student's finance information, student ID. Means we don't have to worry about the other fields. This is student ID. This is if the person has any debts, if the person has any financial dependence, if the person is having education loan, and this is his annual income. Okay, in dollars. Okay, so this is the data is there. So you have to read this data as a RDD, what we have already seen, our context.txt file, and you can specify the path of the file. You can create a RDD out of it. But before that, you have to upload this finances.csv into your Databricks file system DBFS, isn't it? First upload this file into DBFS and then do your operations. Then you can basically, after uploading the data to DBFS, then you can read the data as a RDD and then start applying the transformations there. Okay, so this is the assignment. This is the first assignment you have to try. Okay, so now, okay, this is basically what we have discussed about the first use case. Okay, first use case we have discussed in this way. So now, what else will we trying? Till now, any question? Anybody having any query in this program? Feel free to ask me, because you have to try another program by your own. Yeah.
That as you are using Python program already, we already have some program, right?
Mm-hmm. Python,
And,
yeah, Python we have separate like after just the agenda is basically first 7 sessions will be on RDD. We'll be directly using the RDD APIs to write the code. Then we'll take a pause. We have.
I mean, as we are already using Python, so we have a predefined sum function in Python to sum the list of the elements.
Mm-hmm.
So is it because PySpark you're using map and reduce higher order functions, or is it like we should not use Python predefined functions? Like if you give sum of the list, it will give you 600. And
We
also,
are saying like instead of using RDD, can we directly use Python program to solve this problem? Yeah, that is a catch here. So here we have intentionally created in line number 2, we have created a list of only four records. Just imagine you are working in a project, like since these are big data applications, the objective is whole bunch of like working with big data, like data having billions of records and all. So do you think like using normal pandas data frame or normal Python list, you will be able to process a billion records? No.
okay. When you output amount underscore RDD, you have a list, right? Like 100, 200, 300, and 400. So
Correct.
after that, can you do sum of amount of underscore RDD?
This amount already you are saying, right?
Yeah.
Still, it is having billion amounts. Each integer, if it is taking 4 bytes of memory, you can imagine if you have a billion integers. Sorry, float is of 8-byte memory. So just imagine like if you have a billion record, you have 8 billion bytes of memory, which will be roughly 80 GB of RAM and all. So
Okay.
still you will not be able to solve it in a single computer. You have to think of some distributed computation.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So here we are just replicating the same, just assume like this data is a big data, and then you are solving this problem. If the data is small enough, then obviously what you're saying, like I can read the file using buffer reader and then create a, and basically iterate each and every line. I can read the data, apply some regex, and then extract the amount part, then sum it out. That's the normal approach what we follow for this, what do you call it? For small data sets in a standalone manner. But here my data is really huge enough. It's not available in a single computer. Rather, it is available on multiple computers in the RAM. So it cannot be fitted to a single computer. So that's why standalone programming is not an option. So I have to think of some distributed computation. So I'm using RDD as a resilient distributed data set to solve this problem.
Oh, okay, got it. Siddharth. Thank you.
That
Yeah. So
here like to make it understood, you are defining a get amount. I'm going to line number 9. You're providing attribute as L, okay, and taking a return of that L. Remove that float and other stuff. Then how it is if you don't give the addition of this, it was giving you the result as a 1,000, 2,000, 1,000, 2,000, like
Right.
only amount it was giving. So that particular this particular L of 1, if I consider like it's a key value combination and value is taken out, but in to understand, I'm not getting that point, like how it is getting out that value. Like
Okay.
from transaction list, you have
Up to
TX
this
and
part, is it clear? Like we are getting attribute
yeah,
RDD, that is the.
that I'm getting.
So now, what happened here? Sorry, I called reduce function. That was basically called select function. Up to this part is clear, right? Each and every record just broken into a list of substrings. Okay. So first substring is basically a transaction ID and second one is amount. This part is clear?
Yes.
Next part, from next statement onwards, you are not clear, right?
Yes.
So here, this highlighted part is not a key value pair. Key value pair is a separate data type here. Here it's a list only, because in the previous statement, you have applied a split logic. You splitted each and every line through tilde. So you end up getting a list of 2 elements. And the assignment, what I just gave you, here if you parse or if you split each and every line, you will get a list of 5 fields. 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4, 5. Right? It's a
Right.
list of 5 fields. From that, you have to extract this last element, that is 6,000, 60,000. How will be doing? We'll be applying a transformation. That transformation will take the 4th index of this particular list. Okay, it will take the 4th index of that list. And here you have 2 elements, that's why you're taking the 1st index of the list. Then you take the 1st index of the list, that is nothing but the amount part. But since you want to apply the sum operations to that, so these strings cannot be summed it up. So you have to convert that to numeric type, because the amounts are of numeric type. But the file has been given to you, it's a text file. So you have to read it and you have to basically change or typecast the values to the correct type before applying any aggregations or any other operation. So that's why, so in line number 9, what we did, we just applied another function. In line number 11, we applied a map functions to convert this list into floats, okay, or decimal values representing the amounts.
Could you write that particular line here, that using hash like comment, that particular line? I understood the concept, but while going through the video again,
Extracting the amount part
using that particular
nothing but the second index
of the
each
list.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do here. The moment you call this, then you are getting this amount RTD. and you are executing this, and then you are basically applying the aggregation. Okay, so this is the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So after this, we have to learn a couple of things. We have used a lot of things, but we don't know theoretically what we call them as. So you saw RDD, we discussed like RDD is a fault tolerant, immutable, partitioned, distributed collection of JVM objects. How to create RDD? By applying transformations to existing RDD or by reading data from external sources. Then third point, we discussed how to apply transformations on RDD. We saw a couple of transformations like map function and all, right? So now the next thing is basically what I was just want to highlight here. So in the RDD class, you saw there are hundreds of functions are available. Okay, just always try to connect the dots. I always first give a quick glimpse like what is in a high level it is. Then I basically elaborate it. So in the fault tolerance part, we discussed a long story like every time you submit a job, a new application ID will be registered. That application will be broken into multiple jobs, jobs into stages, stages into tasks. So all this story is completely basically related with the functions what you are using here in your what you are using it in your RDD. Okay, your RDD is having hundreds of functions, and these functions are broadly categorized into two types called transformations and actions. Okay, all these functions are broadly categorized into two types called transformations and actions. Okay, so how you'll get to know which function is what. So when a function returns an RDD, then that is called a transformation, and if a function does not return an RDD, then it is called action. We saw map function, it returns a RDD, so it's a transformation. We call count function. Count function just gives you the count of records in the RDD. That is nothing but an integer. So it's not a transformation, it is called action. You call collect function. Collect function just convert your RDD to a list. So that means it's not returning a RDD, it's returning a list. That means it's a action. You call take function. Take function gives a handful of records from the RDD as a list. It's not returning a RDD, that means it's an action. Any function which return a RDD is called transformation. If it returns a non-RDD, like it can be anything else apart from RDD, then it is called action. Count, collect, take, save as text file. All these functions are called action. Okay, now let's connect.
Yes, Siddharth, means the transformation which gives the final output, that is action, right? Means
Rather, I would say in this way, like you can call multiple chain of transformations. You read a data, apply multiple map transformation, filter transformation, then you call the action. Maybe collect functions to see the output in the console, or you want to physically write the data to SDFS, then you call save as text file. So the last function is called action. Means we don't have to remember in this way, rather we have to remember in the other way. If a function returns the RDD, then it is called transformation, else it is action. And till now you have seen every time we call the action at the end, because you know, like once you call this action, you will not be able to call any other transformation, because actions return non-RDD. You won't be able to call any other transformations on that. So in a chain of transformation calls, you read a data, apply a whole bunch of transformations, map, filter, like that. You keep on applying multiple transformations, and at the end you call action. Okay. Theoretically means we are saying, not theoretically, like syntactically we are saying this is the definition, this is the difference between transformation and action. And execution wise, transformations are lazily evaluated and actions are eagerly evaluated. What does that mean? You simply write a code for context or text file .map, 10 transformations you have applied using map function. You just simply execute it. It will take less than a second to execute. That means what? That means in the backend, no execution happened. When you call action at the end, you call collect or take or save as text file or count, those kind of functions. Then only when then you execute, then only the execution happens. Actions triggers the execution. Transformations are lazy. They will wait. they will wait. They will assume like this person will call another transmission. So I shouldn't execute immediately. I should wait. When the person call an action, then only it starts executing. That's the difference. That's the execution difference I'm saying. So every other action basically triggers the entire chain of transformation executions. You have read the data as a RTD .map .filter .map .filter, like that. You have called n number of chain of transformations, So we'll end up getting chain of transformations. Then you call action. Then the entire chain get materialized. The entire chain get materialized when you call action. Okay, and that is what in the backend happens. That's the we saw syntactical difference. This is the return type of a function. Execution wise, we are saying actions are eager executions, and transformations are lazily evaluated. So you call n number of transformations and you forget to call any action, you execute, nothing happens. Okay, that is one thing. And coming to the execution plan, what we discussed, every time you submit a Spark application to Yarn cluster, and you basically what we discussed, like every time you submit an application, you end up getting an application ID registered there. Each application will be broken into multiple jobs. Okay, each application ID will be broken into multiple jobs. This is what? This is the number of action invocations. It's not theoretical. We'll see it practically. Okay, don't worry. We'll see it practically. We'll execute a code and we'll see like how many, how in the backend the number of jobs get decided. It will be exactly same as the number of actions. Okay, you write chain of transformation. You have written 20 lines of code. You have called 2 transformations. So you will see your application ID is broken into exactly 2 number of jobs. Okay, so that is one thing. And then the next thing what we discussed about each job is further broken into multiple stages. That is again basis what? All is transformations only. End of the day, you are doing data transformation. Your type of function call will decide the number of jobs and number of stages. So now, like we just got to know, like action is the final execution, final call in the DAG, directed acyclic graph of computation. We'll come to that later. Or basically here now, we are calling chain of transformations, and the chain of transformation ends with an action. And before that action, you are calling n number of transformations. Okay, you have 10 function calls. Last one is action, either save as text file or collect. Before that, you have called 9 more functions, 9 other functions. These transformations are again bifurcated into 2 types. The transformations, what we have discussed in map, filter, and all, this transformation is a function which returns a RDD. Those functions are again further divided into 2 types. Or there is a bifurcation. They are of 2 types. Okay, so how to basically know the types? So there is no syntactically, you can't find it out. So execution pattern wise, you will be able to identify. So there are some functions which can be happened one-to-one, and some functions require shuffling of data. Map function you saw. Your data is 100 partitions. When you're applying map transformations on partition 0, you really don't have to worry about what's the records there in the second partition or 100th partition. You apply filter function, it's filtering few records. When you're applying filter function on 10th partition, you really don't have to look at 100th partition, what's the content of that partition, isn't it? They are each partition, this kind of transformations are completely independent transformations. They can independently get applied to a partition because these are mostly one-to-one transformations. But there are certain functions you saw, you have seen only one such function called repartition. When you are calling repartition, data shuffling happens. Okay, so when you are basically repartitioning the first partition, it's not like you don't have to look at other partitions. You have to look at other partitions because Spark always tries to balance the number of records across partitions. So repartition functions triggers shuffling of data, whereas map function, filter function, they don't have to shuffle the data. That they can be applied to each and every partition completely independently, isn't it? So you can apply the transformations completely independently to each and every partition. Okay, whereas repartition function, these are the functions which triggers shuffling of data. So that's why So these transformations are broadly categorized into two types. We call them as narrow transformations and wider transformations. Narrow transformations which doesn't require shuffling of data, wider transformations which require shuffling of data. Okay, so wider transformations are otherwise known as shuffle boundary also. So basis the number of shuffle boundary, number of stages get decided. First of all, we discussed you have 20 lines of code, you have called 2 actions. So that means that application is divided into broken into 2 jobs. Again, we are saying inside, so one job is following 10 functions, and inside that 10 functions, so there are 3 shuffle boundaries. So you end up creating 3 stages. Okay, stages are basis of shuffle boundaries. Basis the number of shuffle boundaries in your in a given job, okay, or in a given action call. Okay, so that is basically the number of stages. And stages is again broken into multiple tasks. Okay, so I called say Spark context.text file .map.filter .partition by repartition. Again I called .map.filter, again repartition. Again called map filter, again repartition. So first phrase Spark context.text file .map.filter .repartition, that's one stage. After that again map filter repartition, second stage. After that map partition map filter repartition, that's the third stage. Okay, in first stage you have suppose called Spark context.text file .map.filter .repartition. 4 function calls. Spark context.text file 1 function, map 1 function, filter 1 function, repartition 1 function, 4 functions. And suppose the data in the backend is of 100 partitions. Okay, you saw like 10 partitions, 8 partitions, 6 partitions. I'm saying ideal scenario, I have in the backend, I have 100 partitions. So 100 partitions times 4 functions. That means 400 tasks. 100 partitions times 4 transformations. You end up creating 400 tasks. That is how the number of tasks get decided. Okay, so that's all for today. So I have to drop off because I have another session. But again, we'll as you have seen till now, whatever theory I say, I show it in programmatically. Also expect the same thing. Whatever we are currently discussing, it's just not limited to theory. We'll see it programmatically. We'll execute a job and we'll see the we'll go to the resource manager page and we can see it. If you have time, you can explore this also. I always try people to self-explore something. You can basically expand every time you execute. No, you can basically expand it and you can see it. Okay, for now it's a little abstract for you, but slowly you will get to know. But again, I think it got flushed out. But every time you execute something fresh, you can click it and you will see it. No, it's coming. Okay, so jobs, stages. Okay, so inside stages, you can get the task. For task, there is no separate tab, but you can click that and you will get to know. Yeah. So like that. So we'll come to that. I'll explain that in details. Okay, just start exploring. So you have a couple of assignments. Just try to find out the sum of transactions from finances data and also try to understand this part. Okay, you are all experienced folks, no required to spoon feeding. I will anyway explain that, but you also spend time. You have bandwidth, weekends, you can spend time. Okay, if you have decided to spend like another 60 hours for this course, so why not use your own time? So you can start using it. Okay, you don't have to completely dependent on me. That's what training is, right? Training is basically to show you, to basically give you the pointers how to quickly learn that things in an organized way, so that you can, with a very less time, you can just get into that field. Okay, but provided we have to just put effort. Okay, any last question before wrapping it up?
Oh, all good, Siddharth.
Kishore, Sandeep, Viharika, Vinay.
I'm good, Siddharth.
Okay, cool. Thanks for your time again. Really appreciate this. On the weekends, you spend this much of time. So we'll again connect tomorrow, same time. Okay.
So just a brief, like tomorrow, what topic you are going to cover? Just a brief.
Just follow the same notebook. I don't remember. I'll just follow the same
Okay,
notebook.
okay,
What is next?
okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
Fine.
So, okay, then let's connect tomorrow again.
Okay, bye.
Thanks everybody. Bye bye.